the toxic haze that choked the lower levels. He called it home, though home was a generous word for the cramped, recycled steel cubicles stacked like forgotten cargo. His name was John, and he was a scavenger, or so he had always been taught. This was the truth of his existence, as he had learned it from the moment he could understand. The tale unfolds from a time long past, a history I have only come to know through whispers and fragmented records. He was one of the countless souls who sifted through the city's refuse for anything of value. Among the useless derelictus, he once found a small, perfectly smooth stone, the color of deep night, impossibly cool to the touch. It was just a stone, a curiosity, but he kept it in his pocket, a quiet weight. They were the unseen, the unheard, their lives a stark contrast to the luminous existence of the elites and the upper spires. His hands, calloused and stained, knew the contours of discarded tech better than they knew the softness of another's skin. That changed the day he saw her. Not truly saw her at first, but felt a tremor in the regulated flow of his existence. She was a flash of crimson against the dull gray of the lower city's underbelly, a vibrant anomaly. Her skin, a deep, unsettling red, marked her as an elite, a product of the genetic enhancements that set her apart. They called them the rubies, their altered physiology allowing them to thrive in the pristine, oxygen-rich upper atmosphere, far from the polluted air. The elites rarely descended. When they did, it was usually for inspection, their sleek, hovering platforms gliding silently, their faces masked by privacy screens. But she was different. She was on foot, her crimson cloak a stark flag against the grimy walls, her movements hesitant, almost lost. He was hidden in the shadows of a collapsed pipe, sorting through the pile of bio-waste when she stumbled. A loose grate, a common hazard in his sector, caught her heel. She fell, a soft gasp escaping her lips. His first instinct, ingrained from years of survival, was to remain unseen. They were taught to avoid the elites, to never engage. This world was not ours, and any interaction could lead to severe repercussions. Yet, a different instinct, one he did not recognize, propelled him forward. Before he fully understood his actions, he was there, offering a hand. Her eyes, the color of polished obsidian, no mask, no privacy screen, just her, vulnerable and exposed. Her skin, even in the dim light, seemed to glow. His hand, rough and dirty, contrasted sharply with her smooth, almost translucent fingers. She hesitated, then took it. Her touch was cool, a surprising chill against his callous palm. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice a melody he had never heard in the cacophony of the lower city. It was refined, modulated, devoid of the harshness that clung to their words. He mumbled something, a guttural sound that felt inadequate. She stood, brushing dust from her cloak, her hand lingering on him. "You are different," she stated, not as a question, but as an observation. He knew what she meant. His clothes were patched, his face smudged with grime. His genetic markers, visible to their advanced scanners, would scream lower level. Yet she did not recoil. Instead, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. "I am Clara," she said. "John," he replied, his voice rougher than he intended. That was the beginning. A forbidden connection forged in the shadow of Sector 7. She came back, not often, but enough. Each meeting was a risk, a dance with discovery. He would guide her through the labyrinth passages, his knowledge of the lower levels a strange currency. She would bring stories of the upper spires, of a world of clean air, synthesized food, and endless information streams. Sometimes she would show him a small, intricate device, not of their world, explaining their complex functions with a quiet, almost detached expertise. She spoke of personal projects and unconventional data streams, hints of a mind that sought knowledge beyond the council's sanctioned archives. Clara spoke of the council, the governing body of the city-state of Neo-London. They were the architects of their stratified society, the enforcers of genetic purity. Their pronouncements echoed through the city, broadcast on every public screen, reinforcing the divide. Order through purity was their mantra, strength through segregation. He told her of the struggles of the lower levels, of the constant threat of resource depletion, of the sickness that plagued his people, a direct result of the polluted environment. She listened, her obsidian eyes reflecting a sorrow he rarely saw. In his own kind, most of them had long ago accepted their fate. Their meetings became a lifeline, a clandestine rebellion against the system. They shared secrets, dreams, and fears. He learned of the intricate genetic codes that defined her existence, the precise modifications that gave her enhanced strength, heightened senses, and a distinctive red color. She learned of his world, a world of ingenuity born of necessity, of community forged in hardship. One day, Clara arrived with a tremor in her voice, a new urgency in her movements. "The Great Convergence," she whispered, her eyes wide with a fear he had never seen in her. "It is upon us." The Great Convergence was a myth to them, a prophecy whispered in hushed tones in the lower levels. It spoke of a celestial alignment, a rare astronomical event that, according to ancient texts, would bring them a new era of prosperity or plunge Neo-London into an age of darkness. The council, however, had turned it into a tool of control. They claimed that the convergence required a, quote, perfect alignment of genetic purity within the rubies to ensure a favorable outcome. Any deviation, any impurity, they warned, would lead to catastrophe. "They're increasing the purges," Claire explained, her voice barely audible, "scanning everyone, looking for anomalies. Any deviation from the genetic blueprint is being eliminated." His blood ran cold. He knew what eliminated meant. It was the council's euphemism for forced reintegration into the lower levels, stripped of their enhancements, left to wither in the toxic air, or worse. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked, a knot forming in his stomach. She looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "Because they believe a deviation has occurred, a significant one, and they believe it is linked to a ruby who has interacted with the lower level." The implication hung heavy in the air. John, their forbidden connection. "They're wrong," he said. His voice lacked conviction. "Are they?" she countered, a hint of desperation in her tone. "The convergence is not a myth, John. It's a real energy shift. It affects the genetic stability of the rubies. My people are sensitive to it, and the council believes that any contamination would disrupt the entire process, leading to a cascade failure across the city's life support systems." The city's life support systems, the purifiers, the atmospheric regulators, the food synthesis plants, everything, their very existence depends on them. "They're preparing a grand ceremony," Clara continued, her voice trembling. "A public display of genetic purity, a realignment ritual. All rubies are required to participate. They believe this will stabilize the convergence." A chill snaked down his spine. A ceremony? A public display? This was not just about control. It was about fear, about maintaining the power through manufactured crisis, and they were at the heart of it. "What do we do?" he asked, the weight of the city, of millions of lives, suddenly pressing down on him. Clara took his hand, his grip surprisingly firm. "There's an old legend," she began, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "It speaks of a symbiotic convergence, where the energies of the upper and lower levels must merge, not remain separate. It requires a connection, a true bond between a ruby and a lower level, a bond of acceptance. He stared at her, his mind reeling. A symbiosis? The council preached segregation, purity. This was heresy. It's dangerous, she admitted. If the council discovers it, it will be instant reintegration for both of us. But if it's true, if the legend holds, it could save us all. It could stabilize the convergence, not through force, but through unity. The risk was immense. Discovery meant the end of everything, perhaps even their lives. But the alternative, the council's realignment ritual, felt like a path to certain disaster, a desperate attempt to cling to power at any cost. How do we do it? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Claire pulled a small, intricate carved data shard from beneath her cloak. This contains the instructions, an ancient text hidden from the council for generations. It speaks of a specific location, a nexus point where the city's energy lines converge, a place where the divide between the upper and lower is thinnest. The location she described was deep within the Forbidden Zones, a place rumored to be haunted by the ghosts of failed experiments, a place where even the most desperate scavengers avoided. It was a place of immense power and immense danger. We have to go there, she said, her eyes fixed on his. Before the realignment ritual, before the convergence reaches its peak. The council's ritual was scheduled for the next day, a mere 24 hours away. The city pulsed with an uneased energy. The purifiers were working overtime, their drone a frantic beat against the rising tension. They moved under the cloak of night, navigating the treacherous lower levels. Clara, despite her delicate appearance, moved with a surprising agility. Her ruby enhancements allowed her to perceive dangers John would have missed. His knowledge of the hidden passages, the forgotten access points, was their only guide. He still carried the smooth, dark stone in his pocket, a habit more than anything, its cool weight a familiar comfort. They encountered patrols, their automated drones scanning the dark alleys. They hid in a refuse pile, in abandoned ventilation shafts, their breaths held, their hearts pounding. Each near miss was a stark reminder of the consequences of their action. As they neared the Forbidden Zone, the air grew heavier, charged with an unseen energy. The walls around them seemed to hum, the ground beneath their feet vibrating with a low drum. This was the nexus point, the heart of Neo London's power grid, a place where raw energy flowed. The entrance to the nexus was a massive rusted blast door, long abandoned. It was sealed, but Claire, with the touch of her crimson-skinned hand, activated a hidden panel. The door hissed open, revealing a cavernous space filled with pulsating conduits and glowing energy crystals. The air inside was a thick ozone, a metallic tang that stung their nostrils. In the center of the chamber stood a circular platform, adorned with strange symbols that seemed to glow with an inner light. "This is it," Claire whispered, her voice echoing in the vast chamber, the place of symbiotic convergence. They stepped onto the platform. The symbols beneath their feet flared with a soft, warm light. Clara opened the data shard, its ancient text projected into the air, shimmering with an ethereal glow. "The ritual requires a merging of energies," she said, her voice steady despite the tremors in her hands. "A shared intention, a belief in unity." She looked at him, her obsidian eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "We must touch the central crystal," she instructed, pointing to a large, multifaceted crystal that pulsed with a vibrant blue light in the center of the platform. "And we must focus. Imagine the city whole. Imagine the divide erased." He nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. This was it. The culmination of their forbidden relationship. A desperate gamble for the fate of Neo London. As he reached for the crystal, his fingers brushed against the smooth stone in his pocket. Without thinking, He pulled it out, its cool surface a stark contrast to the charged air. They reached for the crystal, their hands meeting on the smooth, cool surface. John, still holding the dark stone, placed it against the central crystal, a small, almost unconscious act. As their fingers touched and the dark stone made contact, a jolt of energy surged through him, a warmth that spread through his veins, amplified and intensified by the stone's presence. Clara gasped, her eyes closing, her crimson skin seeming to glow even brighter. The dark stone in John's hand began to hum, a low vibration, and a faint, deep blue that pulsed from within its depths, mirroring the large crystal. Images flooded his mind. The sprawling city, its upper spires gleaming, its lower levels choked with smog. Then a shift. The smoke began to dissipate, replaced by clean, breathable air. The purifiers, once a symbol of their oppression, now hummed with a gentle, life-giving rhythm. The divide between the rubies and the lower levels blurred. Their distinct colors merged into a harmonious spectrum. It was a vision, a hope, a desperate prayer. He poured all of his will into it, focusing on unity, on the dissolution of the rigid social strata that had divided their lives. Clara, beside him, trembled, her concentration absolute. The central crystal pulsed, glowing brighter, its blue light engulfing them. The dark stone in John's hand vibrated more intensely, its deep blue glow strengthening, feeding into the larger crystal. The energy in the chamber intensified, a roaring symphony of power. He felt a connection, not just to Clara, but to the city itself, to every living being within its walls. Then a sudden jarring sensation, a sharp, searing pain in his head. The images flickered, distorted. The unity he had envisioned fractured, replaced by chaos. The blue light of the central crystal turned a sickly green, then a furious red. The dark stone in John's hand, however, maintained its deep blue glow, a small, steady beacon amidst the chaotic energy. Clara cried out, her hand tearing away from the crystal. She stumbled backward, clutching her head, flushing with an unnatural heat. "What's happening?" he choked out, his head throbbing. She looked at him, her eyes wide with terror. It's too much," she whispered, her voice strained. "The counter ritual, it's not working, or something is interfering." Just then, a piercing wail that echoed through the chamber. Red lights flashed, casting sinister shadows on the walls. "They found us," Clara gasped, her voice filled with despair. The blast doors, which they had entered through, began to grind open. Figures in dark, armored suits, their faces obscured by visors, poured into the chamber. Council enforcers. She was collapsing, her body racked with tremors. The crimson glow of her skin was fading. The enforcers moved with a chilling efficiency. They surrounded them, their energy weapons humming. One of them, a tall, imposing figure, stepped forward. His visor retracted, revealing a gaunt, severe face. It was Commander Blackwood, the head of the Council's Genetic Purity Division. "Clara of the Rubies," Blackwood's voice was cold, devoid of emotion. "You have committed the gravest transgression, genetic contamination, treason against Neo-London." He looked at John, his gaze filled with contempt. "And you, Scavenger, you have corrupted one of our own. You will both be reintegrated." Reintegration. The word hung in the air, a death sentence. "No," John cried, trying to shield Clara, but it was too late. The enforcers moved, their movements swift and precise. Clara was lifted, her limp form carried away. As they dragged her, her hand, with a final desperate surge of energy, pressed a small, hidden device on her wrist. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer developed around her for a fleeting moment before she vanished from sight. John struggled, but their strength was overwhelming. sharp pain in his neck, a sudden darkness. The dark stone slipped from his numb fingers as he fell. When he woke, he was in a sterile white room. His head ached, a dull throb behind his eyes. His hands, he noticed, were no longer calloused. They were smooth, almost delicate. He looked down at his skin. It was no longer stained with grime. It was pale. A mirror on the wall reflected a stranger. His face, once gaunt and weathered, was now smoothed, almost unlined. His eyes, once dull with exhaustion, held a strange, unsettling clarity. He touched his cheek. It was soft. He was no longer a scavenger. He was something else. A voice, synthesized and emotionless, spoke from hidden speakers. Subject John. Genetic realignment successful. You have been purified. You're now designated for reintegration into the mid-levels, pending behavioral assessment. Mid-levels, not the upper spires, but a step above the lower levels. A place of controlled existence, of limited freedom. Clara, what happened to her? The memory of her fading crimson skin, her terrified eyes, flashed in his mind. Then a whisper, not in his ear, but in the newly cleared space in his mind. John, I'm still here. Not as you knew me, but here. It was her voice, ethereal, yet undeniably Clara. A ghost in the machine of his purified mind. The upload, it worked. A part of me lives in the network. I saw what you did. The unity, it wasn't a failure, not entirely. They contained the chaos, but the resonance, it spread. And the stone, John, the stone amplified it. It was a conduit. Look at the air, John. Look at the lower levels. He tried to respond, but no words formed. His voice continued, a faint echo. They think they won. They think they purified. But the seed is planted. The purifiers, they hum differently now. A cleaner energy. A little more stable. My sacrifice, it wasn't for nothing. But that is just the beginning. The true fight, it needs you, John. Find the hidden channels. Find the others. I will guide you when I can. We will finish what we started. The council's realignment ritual was broadcast later that day. He watched it on a public screen in the mid-level common area, his new purified eyes seeing the world with a disturbing clarity. Commander Blackwood stood before a vast crowd of rubies, their crimson skin glowing under the artificial light. He spoke of the divine intervention that had diverted disaster, of the successful realignment of genetic purity that had saved Neo-London from convergence destruction. He spoke of a deviant strain that had been attempted to disrupt the sacred ritual, a contamination. He did not mention Clara by name, but John knew. The city seemingly safe. The purifiers hummed steadily, that the air in the mid-levels, and even a faint improvement in the lower sectors, felt subtly cleaner than before. A small, almost imperceptible victory. Life continued, orderly and controlled. But something was wrong. John felt it. A subtle dissonance in the carefully constructed reality. His memories of Clara, of their forbidden connection, were vivid, almost painfully so. Yet when he tried to speak of them, the words felt alien on his tongue. His new, purified mind seemed to resist the truth. The Great Convergence had passed. The council claimed victory, their power solidified. But John knew, deep down, that something had been lost, and something gained. The counter-ritual, the symbiotic convergence, had not failed entirely. He felt a faint echo of the unity, the merging of energies within him. It was a faint hum, a whisper of a different future. Perhaps the council had not neutralized the deviant strain as completely as they claimed. Perhaps, in their attempt to purify him, they had inadvertently integrated a part of Clara's. Perhaps her consciousness, now free in the network, was the true key. He is John, he is purified. He is mid-level, but he remembers. The city believes it was saved by segregation, by purity. But I know it was almost saved by something else entirely. And the true convergence, the one that matters, is yet to come. It will not be a grand ceremony, but a quiet, insidious unraveling of their carefully constructed lies. I will be there to guide him. I will be there to remember.